Hi, my name is Sami Auronen. Producer, mixing engineer, recording engineer, all that. Failed guitar player, which goes into why I am a producer in the first place. And what we're doing here today is something like a mix rundown, if you will, from this band called Ultra Mayhem. They used to be called Pure Fiction. I produced their previous record and now doing this. This song, in particular, in this case, this song that we're working on, called "The Rooster." The demo is probably something like, I mean, the first version of this song is 10 years old, or something like that. And this wasn't even supposed to be on this EP. We had 4 songs that we demoed, and the way I do things is I work on the demos. I work on the arrangement and lyrics and everything in the demo thing. So when we're recording just usable material so that I don't have to do that in the post-production. And out of somewhere came this old demo or an old recording of this song, and I really, really liked it. And I wanted this to be on the EP as well. And we changed the arrangement a bit from the original demo. Moved some parts around and stuff like the usual stuff. But basically, it's the same song. So, drums in the demo stage, we didn't record drums. We did those with Easy Drummer, I think. Well, it doesn't really matter, but demos are demos. So, in essence, what we did, we had a demo and all the tracks from the demo. And so, when it came time to record for real, we just started recording on top of that. So here we go. And oh yeah, this wasn't done in like Sunset Sound or anything like that. This was done pretty much on an entry-level style gear. So we're not millionaires or anything like that. So here's the drums. And yeah, I'm gonna play you a bit of how the drums sound as they were recorded. Let's pull this up. No samples, no plugins, no nothing. I've set the level so that it sounds like a drum kit, or at least how the way I want it. And record that with overhead mics, AKG 214s, I think. Like a room stereo setup, and like a capture situation that 2 mics pointing at the drum kit like this. So, yeah, recorded it and edited it. And here you can see how that looks like. Like, take a look at the overhead channels right here. These are the 2 bottom channels, like right here. It looks like a barcode. The way I like to do, edit drums is I don't use beat detective. I don't like it. It takes away the soul of the drummer, if you will. The way I do things is I group the drums and just edit those by hand and nudge the things around. And after that, once the edit is done, and I'm pretty happy with the sound, I start laying samples on top of that. So let's see what happens. Let's just click this on from the chorus. Nothing fancy there. I think it's a pretty decent sound. So, kick drum, a gate on that. Looks like this. EQ, pretty drastic as it is. Yeah. And then from the kick drum goes into a kick drum master, as in the BD, as in a bass drum master. And it has this kind of stuff in it. Another EQ, a compressor, and another EQ. And this EQ is here mainly because the drummer thought this wasn't metal enough. So I just boosted the low end, cut the low to high mids. I mean, that's the 700 hertz right here, and boosted the high end. So you get that more Metallica-like thing. And here's an limiter on top of that, so it doesn't clip with the samples coming later on. And here you can, this is without it and with it. So it's really, really more punchy. Yeah. The rest of the drums. Then EQ on the overheads, compressor on the overheads, a mild compressor that is, and some distortion to that. Same thing, almost the same thing. Well, here's the EQ on the room mics, nothing's fancy there. Snare. This is the snare that we recorded. Some bleed, which is normal. Gate that. EQ goes into a bus that has an EQ, a compressor, and another EQ, and a limiter to push that all up. So now it's beginning to sound like a drum kit. Gated toms, EQ the toms. Yeah, all going into a drum bus, I mean the master bus, which has an EQ, a mild one, a compressor, a mild one, let's pull this down, and distortion. Just bringing a hint of anger into the whole mix, and a limiter just that I don't hit it on red. It's not doing anything, as it seems. So after that, samples. The way I do samples is I use this plugin called Massey. Hold on, where is it? Yeah, Massey DRT. There we go. And the way this works is you grab a piece of audio into the thing, and then you set all these things individually. I mean, you can tweak it from here. And you see, yeah, so it grabs all the hits like this. Well, this is a sample track, so it obviously, we need all those. And after that, you go into samples, get your sample, whatever it may be, put that on top of that, and then work on another track. The problem with that is when you have something like a snare track, and it has a lot of information in it. You have to go every single hit, just inspect every single hit, or at least listen through the track once you laid the samples in it, and listen that they are aligned, because it doesn't automatically do that, and that's something that I consider to be like a craft. That once you do that right, then you know it's right. You don't have to second guess that later, and you can just rely on things being correct rather than slapping on some plugin and hoping it will do the trick. Those usually just don't work. I mean, I've tapped into Drumagog and stuff like that, and they work really well when they do work. But yeah, this is just the way I do things. I like to work with audio tracks that are complete, rather than having some plugin doing something that I'm not really sure it's doing the correct thing. So, kick drum. Let's get those groups back. Here's the kick drum. Just the yeah. Sample number 1. Some EQ on that. Sample number 2. Some EQ on that. Actually, no EQ on that. Yeah, so this is our recorded kick drum. Another with the one sample, and there you go. There you go. And there's some reverb on the kick as well. Then snare drum, same thing with samples. So let's hear those. That's the recorder snare. First sample. Like a whip. And more metallic snare. And more like a fluffy snare to give it more width. All 4. Oh yeah, and the EQs. So it really makes a difference. Let's listen to the whole kit. First without the kick and snare samples, and then with those. Hold on. Okay. Without any samples. Kick samples. What the fuck just happened? Oh yeah. There we go. That's drums. It's when you go back and listen to the drums that were recorded and the way they sound now, it just makes a huge difference. Little things. A couple of samples on the kick drum, a ridiculous 3 samples on the snare. But with the snare, we just recorded the top mic, not the bottom mic. So, and again, getting the snare right obviously in this kind of music is paramount. The snare has to be big. And on this, I really went over the top with the reverb. If you listen to just snare. Yeah. You can still hear some bleed from the recorded snare with the gate, but not that much. And toms. Here they are. And let's take a look at those. All right, just a bit dull. Nothing wrong with those. Put on some samples. Oh yeah, and the gates, you might have noticed that I have gates on the sample tracks as well. Just because this is an old Pro Tools. I don't have a delay compensation or anything like that, so it helps to have the same kind of plugins to get them sort of like lined up. I don't know if I would have even need these, but I don't know. Yeah, huge difference. And notice that I'm sending the sample toms into the reverbs, not the recorded toms, because those have bleed in them. And here's the whole kit done. Yeah, so that's it. So what I'm trying to say is a little bit of this and that goes a long way rather than doing a lot on some one particular thing. First, carefully record whatever it is that you're trying to record. And then EQ it with taste, not overdo things and oversample and stuff like that. The critical thing is to get overhead and room sounds that you like when you're recording them. They're not going to change later. You have to like everything that you record. I like to say that whatever it is that you record, I mean, a mix without any plugins, any reverbs, anything should sound good, really good. And then you just improve on that. Get your balances right, and then a little bit of this and that, and little things take it in little steps further, and it goes a long way. I mean, this compared to what I played you before, the tracks that we were recorded is a major improvement. So next, bass. We kind of hit different things when we recorded this. Remember, this was an old song, and the bass player playing in the band 10 years ago is not in the band anymore. But we wanted him to play on this anyway. And because we're working on a budget, I do like to get paid for the stuff that I do. We try to cut costs in a way that the guitar player would engineer most of this stuff, with me just giving him instructions on what to do and how to do them. And this worked sometimes. With the bass, the original bass player was kind enough to spend his time and to come over and play, and they did get something, but not quite right. I mean, there were some things that were the sound and the feeling and everything was really, really good, but they played the bass parts not the way I wanted them, and there was even some wrong notes and bad notes and what have you. So luckily, what we did use was this clever part that he did, where it says kind of like bass chords. And here they are. Hold on. A little bit of EQ. And distortion, yes. There you go. And it's really low in the mix, but I'll show you later on when we add the bass that it really makes a difference. So the bass player that played on the rest of the EP came over because he really, really liked this song, and played the actual bass parts. By that time, I was beginning to be pretty fed up with all this nonsense, so I made an appearance and recorded the bass myself. Yeah, because it took a while to get here. So Shure SM52 on a cabinet, EQ, AKG 214 on a cabinet, and an EQ for that. Sounds like this. Without the EQs. A line sound with an EQ, a sense amp, and an EQ after that. Going into a bus that has an EQ, a compressor, and another EQ. And there's the bass by itself. Now take a listen when I add those bass chords to that. Okay. Fuck. Really nicely brings out the low end. So here we have it, bass and drums. Okay, next up, guitars. We hit a bit of a snag with the batteries on the camera, so now we're back again. The thing that I forgot to mention about samples in drums is watching a lot of these videos on YouTube on how to use samples and how to do this and that. They talk about phasing quite a bit. And the thing is, here you can see the green one is the recorded kick drum, and the two are the sample things. And as you can see, they look different. The waveform looks really, really different. The green one is the actual thing, and these two are samples. And of course they look different because they're recorded differently. So you're not gonna get absolute phasing on everything, but you just try to get them as close as you can. And with this, I don't know if I flip the phase. That's not flipped. That's not flipped. But again, with that, I try and try when I'm recording to make sure that I get the phases right when I record stuff. And then I, of course, go back and check and double check and triple check. But you're not going to get those exactly 100% right. And that's just something that you're going to live with. And if you go out the door and listen to the outside world, nothing is in phase there. That's how you hear things, that something is further away, something is closer, and on and on and on. So you shouldn't worry about that. If it sounds good, it is good. So moving on to guitars. So I was talking about the clean guitars. Here's the chorus guitar. And this guitar was recorded with a special guitar, a thing called Nemo, made by this guy, Juha Ruokangas, a Finnish luthier. And it's one of a kind guitar with a tube preamp, I guess. I haven't really tried that, but they say it's good, so I guess it is. And the guitars were recorded, I don't know if I said this earlier, with a 609, 57, and a line track that was treated with this plugin called Bias. I don't know nothing about that, but the guitar player recorded demos with just that bias, and those sounded great. So I was thinking maybe we can incorporate that. So just to save time, I'm not going to go through that, but I had 3 guitar tracks. I had EQs on all of them, and then I recorded them to one single track. So when I'm mixing, I don't have a gazillion tracks. I have something that I decided was good. So another thing to do, and this is not a tutorial, these are my opinions. The way I do things is not the truth, it's just something that I do. I like to commit, make decisions, and record things like those. I said 3 separate tracks on one guitar, record them as one single mono track, and here's what I came up with nothing else. And EQ on that looks like this, because there's huge amount of bottom end. And with the bass track that we have, that has 3 tracks and the bass chords, there's no room for that low end. It's just gonna be mush. And another set of clean guitars, again 3 tracks on each side, as in a stereo setup here, without anything. And a little bit of EQ on the top of that. It's not doing anything. I don't know why that is there. Anyway, here you go. So there's the verse. Works for me. I did some synths. I did the synths. First off, we discussed about this, and I've done a lot of productions where I do everything, as in the keyboards, guitars, record someone else playing the drums, because I don't play that good drums. And so just to save time, and because I had really clear vision of what I wanted, I was given almost a free rein to do the keyboards, and that's just what I did. And here's, again, a synth, and that I played via MIDI, and then recorded into audio. And the first pad sounds like this. with a little bit of EQ to take the low end out and some low mids. Another pad. And as you can hear, there's some sort of almost like a loop in the other pad, and the other pad is got something else going on as well. The way I like to use synths, as in pads and synths in general, is to have some sort of movement in them. I don't know much about synths, other than what I've read and studied and learned while just fucking up over and over again. But the thing, if you have a static pad just in there doing nothing but being in there, it's gonna get dull pretty quickly. So for my money, it's better to have this some sort of thing, some sort of filter, some sort of thing going in there. So or going on. The pads or the synths are not that prominent, but if I take them out, let's take the guitars out. They just bring a little bit of ambience into the mix that I like. I mean, it's not Depeche Mode or anything. And for the intro, I played some piano thing. And in that, the delay and the reverb is printed into the track. Because that way, I have no way in taking that off or fixing that later. So I have to make a decision right then and there what I want. And this is what I wanted. This is how it sounds like. And some synth pickups just to accent where the verse begins. Okay, so that basically takes care of the whole song, intro, verse. Let's go into the chorus. Same pickups with the strings. Same pads playing different things, but still the same pads. Okay. As you can see, there's some guitar tracks that were used and some guitar tracks that were not used. As in, this is muted and this is used. And you see these are named new and obviously the other ones are old. That's because we had different opinions on how the chords should go in the bridge part coming later on. And the first guitars were played wrong, as was the bass. The first bass that the original bass player played, the chords were played wrong, so that's why the other bass player did the bass parts as he did the other songs. But I like some parts of the old guitars, and I use them later on in the song. But again, here's the rhythm guitars. Again, 3 tracks, Sennheiser 609, 57, and that bias thing that the guitar player has and likes, which takes care of the top end on the guitars. So these EQ'd and recorded into stereo tracks. So here's the first guitar, the low. With an EQ. And another EQ. And another set of guitars. Same kind of thing. These API things, I wanted to try something new, as in the EQs, because I usually use this EQ3. So I really, really like, and it's really underrated plugin. Nobody really wants to say it's their favorite plugin because they're not endorsed by company as in Avid, and this comes free with every Pro Tools, and it's, for my money, it's the best plugin because it doesn't have a particular sound. It does a lot of things, does them well, but the one thing that it doesn't do bold enough is high end. If you want more high end, you're better off with one of these things that are supposed to be like an old analog console. They're not. And the way an old analog console works is, or if you're accustomed to working with tape and old analog gear, you're probably more prone to boosting stuff rather than cutting stuff. And with digital stuff, it's better to cut than boost, because digital doesn't have like a sound that you would want to boost. And these things are supposed to have an analog sound, and they don't. They work nothing like a real analog thing should, but they look nice. So at least that counts for something. Without the plugins. And because, that thing is really kind of static. We had another bunch of guitars with melody guitars or something. Again, with what the hell is this? Oh, a little bit of delay. A dull delay, just bring a little bit of air into that. Without anything, it sounds like this. EQ, delay, with the two guitars. Pretty good, but for that chorus thing, I wanted more pronounced, some sort of rhythm, like da da da, something, because the bass isn't really cutting through, and I didn't want to bring the bass up anymore. So what I did was this. Again, another synth with a little bit of EQ. On itself, it doesn't sound that good, or even any good, but the guitars, without it, and with it, So that synth, even though if you don't know it's there, you're probably not going to notice it's there. But without it, you don't have that movement that it brings into the thing. So it just helps. It just kind of sits there. It's not prominent or anything in the mix. But if you remove it, you can really hear it. So that's the chorus. Yeah. Okay. Then there's a second verse, second chorus, same things. Okay. After the second chorus, we move on into the bridge part, which is this thing. After that comes the orchestral part, if you will. And there I had just to, let's close these for now. Okay. I had the old guitars brought in, same thing, a little bit of EQ, EQ'd them with the separate tracks, recorded them into stereo tracks, and here we go. Okay. Doesn't really sound that majestic yet. So it needed some synths. It needed some huge synth things. And we had the pads doing something. And then there's percussion. Treated with EQ, distortion, and another EQ. Okay, with that. Bit better. And then strings, the same kind of string sounds that I used for the pickups on in the beginning of each chorus. So here we go. There you go. And with those strings, it sounds like this. And of course, we have the lead guitar. And in this case, I only used one recorded track and one bias track for whatever reason. I can't remember what that reason was, but here we go. EQ. course, you have to have delay. But not much. It doesn't take more than that. Remember, every musician, drummer, bass player, guitar player, singer, they all have their own sound. So I try not to mess with that. Rather than trying to fit them into some mold that I would want them to sound like or be like. It's their art, if you will. So you have to live with what they give you. So you don't mess with that. If it sounds good, just a little bit of pixie dust on top of that, and of course delay, because it's a guitar solo. And there you have it. Sounds like this. There's the delay on the solo. I edited the part where the solo part where it uses that whammy pedal, goes into the high note, because the way it was originally played was that the high note became later on, and I wanted this silent part in here reserved just for the vocals. So I had to move it, but it's easy. Yeah, I'll just fix it in the edit. Okay, what's next? Vocals, I guess. Yeah, lead vocals. Vocals were recorded with this mic, Aston Spirit. It seems it is. Not that expensive mic, but I really, 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 really like it for what it is. And it just goes to show that you can get good results with something other than a Neumann U87 that costs like 2K or more. And the thing that I usually concentrate more is the vocal performance. Because you can edit the phrasing, you can EQ the sound any which way you like. You can pitch and tune and do whatever you want with whatever it is you recorded. But you cannot replace emotion, or you cannot add emotion in the mixing stage. So when you're recording vocals, that's paramount in that. In getting the story, getting the performance out of the singer or out of any musician that you have. I mean, vocal is delicate. It's a delicate instrument in that regard, more so than a guitar or bass or drums would be, because it resides in the person singing. So in this case, the lyrics were written like when the first version of the song was done like 10 years ago or something like that, and they were written by the singer. So obviously, when you think of something and then there's a 10 years gap of 10 years, even if you agree with yourself or agree with what you wrote or what you did 10 years ago, you might think a little bit differently about it. So we had to find the perspective back to what it is that this is. So we spent more time on that than picking the mic or doing that technical stuff, because it matters more, to me at least. And even though this is not supposed to be a tutorial, but I mean, think about it. Whenever you do a song, if you're a songwriter or a producer, musician, what have you, the ultimate test is to play it to your girlfriend or your boyfriend or your neighbor or somebody who's not music related. And about 11 times out of 10, the comment is going to be something about the vocals or about the vocal. Even I like the singer, I don't like the singer, I like the lyrics, I don't like the lyrics, I hate the way he or she sings or something like that. It's not like I really, really love that kick drum or I really love that 9 chord in the bridge part. It's nothing like that. So vocal is really important thing. If you're a drummer in a band or a bass player in a band, you're probably not going to want to hear this, but that's the way it is. So, again, it's more about the performance than it is about the mic, even though this is a good mic. Some of the bass tracks were, and the other songs were recorded with this. I recorded all of my background vocals with this. Works well with an acoustic guitar and, again, cost effective. And I'm not endorsed by this company, sadly. Okay, well, here's the vocal with nothing on it.
Same old place, same old thoughts.
Sounds kind of dull, so EQ.
Same old door.
And another EQ.
Old wall.
Because as I said, I want to boost the top end with something other than my go-to EQ, which is this. So I used this because I used this on this project. Try to learn to love it, if you will. And the compressor.
Same old place.
Getting
same
there.
Same old thoughts.
Another compressor.
Same old door. And the same old wall.
And the second compressor doesn't do much of anything in the quiet parts. But when you get to that chorus thing, then it kind of snaps. There you go.
Roll the roaster.
Okay. And the trick that I used on this is something that I found online. The video that I watched was called Warren Hewart. I can't pronounce his name properly. Vocal thickening trick. Just go and see that video, and this is basically what it does is kind of like chorus thing, and this is the EQ on that. Let's listen to it without the EQ.
Same old place, same old thoughts.
EQ.
Same old door, and the same.
Doesn't really sound that charming by itself, but with the lead vocal. Let's listen to the lead vocal without it.
Same old place, same old thoughts.
And now with it.
Same old door, and the same old wall.
Okay, and that's the vocal without any reverb or delay on it. And the reverbs that I use, let's go through those. And another thing that I like to do, I mean, people use reverbs as in like inserts. Like you have a different reverb for the snare, the kick drum, the guitars, the lead guitars, what have you, different delays and this and that. And because I've been doing this thing for a while now, and when I started, we had this kind of things, as in mixing consoles, and you had 1 or 2 reverbs and 1 or 2 delays, if you were lucky. So you use those on the whole mix. And I try to incorporate that philosophy into the whole thing, because that way, when you send a snare into a reverb or 2 reverbs, or how many do you want to use? And then you send the vocals into the same things and the guitars into the same things. It makes it feel like it resides in the same place rather than having different kind of rooms for its things. It can sound chaotic, for me at least. So the first reverb is like this. A long hall, grand hall, I guess. Yeah.
Same old place, same old thoughts.
Pretty moderate amount of that.
Same old door and
second,
the same old wall. Picture in the mirror is same as.
and the second reverb is a lot smaller, a lot closer, just to have like a room and then hall behind that. So here we go. 2 reverbs now.
Same old place, same old thoughts. Same old.
And 2 reverbs, so I like to use 2 delays as well. The first delay is short. Oh, let's go into here.
Same old place, same old thoughts. Same old door and the same old wall.
And the second delay is more pronounced, much longer thing. And at first, I thought, well, there's quite a lot of that reverb. But then, as I moved on into doing different things, as in the background vocals and stuff like that, I got accustomed to that level of reverb and delay and started liking that. And because, I mean, if you listen to the verse, there we go.
Same old place, same old thoughts. Same old door.
There's not that much going on in there, other than the static background of the guitar, kind of like a drone, bass playing basically the same thing over and over again, and obviously drums. So I wanted to have some sort of thing going on, as I said with the pads, some sort of thing or movement going on, the same thing I wanted with the vocals. So that's why I left the delays on. And in the second verse, there's this octave thing.
I need no help. I need no support. So far, you are.
Yeah. It just sits there. Just to give the second verse a little bit more flavor, if you will, or a different flavor. And the way we proceeded with the vocals is I had a different session going on where I bounced the background and just had that as a set cue mix for the singer, singing right here beside me with both of us wearing headphones, because it makes communicating a lot more easier rather than having a talk back. The singer in a different room with a huge cue mix going on, and you can't really hear what's going on. So in a situation like this, when you're not in a real studio or something like that, it's I kind of like that, because then you have some sort of closeness into what it is that you're doing. You're not talking to some weird cue thing into headphones. You're talking to a person standing next to you because he's standing next to you. So after that, I made a quick edit as I was recording, then went back. Went back and did the final edit, tweaked bits and pieces here and there, did that thickening thing that you hear, that I showed earlier. And that's basically it. For the tuning stuff, subtle things with Melodyne. But with Melodyne, you can't just tune a word or two. You have to tune the whole thing. I mean, you have to run the whole thing through the Melodyne just to get a consistent sound. And what Melodyne does, I probably could do a 15-minute video just on how to work with Melodyne, because I don't like it, but it's just kind of seems to be the sound of today. So in order to achieve that, I kind of have to work with it. So for that reason, hold on. Yeah, there's the not melodined vocal that I grab all the S's out of that and almost all the breaths, like breathing sounds, because those can sound really metallic and kind of robot-like. And I really want just to use the Melodyne to fix the parts that needed fixing and not have that Melodyne sound on stuff that I don't like. So that's it takes some time, but the same thing as with the samples, when you put the minutes and hours into something like that, it's going to reward you in the long run. So, yeah. And here's what this sounds like, yeah.
Same old place, same old thoughts. Same old door and the same old wall.
Yeah, and both the lead vocal, the lead thick and the lead thick, and the octave double are going into a separate bus that I have. And all the delay sends and reverb sends are sending from that bus rather than from the track. That way I can balance stuff going into the bus rather than, and have that bus be set on some level and have it just sit there. So you kind of like what you would do with a drum kit. You balance the things and you push it into, drive it through a bus. And then if you want everything louder or everything quieter, you just have to do one thing. Okay, background vocals were sung by me, so they're not that, nothing to write home about. I sang 4 tracks, each voice, melodined them more heavily than the lead vocal, because they need to support the lead vocal, not be the lead vocal. And here we go. A little bit of EQ on each of these things, and then basically the same stuff as you have on the lead vocal bus. If I remember correctly, I just made a copy of the vocal bus and tweaked this to taste, or bad taste. So here we go. Yeah, with the lead vocal, it sounds something like this.
And I roll the rooster. I have been here before. And I roll the rooster. I see through it all.
Obviously, the problem with this kind of material, you have the heavy distorted guitars, and you have the reso synth thing going on in there. You have some pads. Later on, you have some strings, a lot of stuff. So the thing that happens is you only hear the high voice. and the rest of the stuff just kind of gets lost in the mix. And if you push that, the result might be that it overpowers the lead vocal. So that balance is really, really delicate, where I don't want it to sound like a duet. I want the background vocals to support the lead vocal as the thickening thing. So if you listen to the chorus, and I'll take the whole take both of those voices, it's two voices, high and low, both of those off, and add the lower first, and then the high voice. And in the bridge part, the latter part, it goes into a three-part harmony with the lead vocal. So let's listen to that. Oh, there we go.
Oh, my eyes were blinded shut. The truth beneath his God.
So there you have it. And earlier, when I played you, we went through those strings and things in this bridge part. String sounds, even though I used some synth for the other one to have it more bright, and the other one is that I forgot the manufacturer's name, but it's some Miroslav or something. It's supposed to be like an actual sampled orchestra, and they all sound kind of lame or synth-like. Maybe, well, they are synths, so. But there's no budget in recording an actual symphony orchestra, so there you go. But the background vocals, now that you listen to the bridge part with all of this, it's the vocals that make the thing or break the thing.
My eyes were blinded shut. The truth beneath his God.
So where the background vocals end, and the lead guitar kicks in, there's very little room for those synths. So you get by with those. So yeah, that's again a budget version of like majestic synth sounds. And if you take away the lead vocal, there you can hear the balance where the background vocals sit. So the background vocals are actually an integral part of this mix. They're not insanely loud, or I don't want them to overpower or take away anything from the lead vocal. I want them to support that. So, okay, here's the mix. Some volume automation here and there. I needed to push the lead guitar in that majestic part, if you will, so to get that to rise on top of the whole pile of stuff that's going on under there. And then it comes down to the solo. The actual solo. Same thing with the background vocals. But as I stated earlier, when I print all this, record these into audio tracks, there is no virtual instruments. There is no virtual anything in this. It's just audio at this stage, and it makes it real easier because everything is right there. And the other cool thing about this, and somebody might disagree with me, is it limits my options. I have the synths right there. I have the MIDI synth tracks with the instruments inactive the tracks, but I'd have to go back in there and re-record them and do this and that in order to change them. So I have to make decisions that what I'm going to use later on and what it's going to end up being. And this helps with the big picture. You have to have a clear vision of what are you doing. And that starts with the demo. And in the start of this video, I said we went through a stage of demos in this process, and the changes that were made and the big picture decisions or the bigger decisions concerning songs and stuff like that were made in that stage. So I wouldn't have to second guess in this stage anymore, and it helps. So the last thing that I do with all of my mixes is a master bus limiter. So without the limiter, it's like this.
Same old place,
And when you start limiting it,
same old door, and the same old wall.
set it to where it just grabs it. And what happened with these mixes was when you go to Spotify or when you go to YouTube and watch the video of this song, this is the thing that you get. These weren't mastered, against my opinion. You cheap yes. Now, anyway, this is what you get. The band thought that these sound good. They sound really good. And they won't spend the money on the mastering. They won't do this and that because, whatever their basis for their opinion was, that is what ended up happening. So why I do this usually is when I send rough mixes or I send mixes to clients, they want to hear something that is as loud as anything else that they're listening to and sounds close to a finished record, even though it might not be. So a limiter in the master bus isn't going to hurt anyone. It's just going to compress the whole thing. But the thing that I do before the limiter is a master EQ. And this Brainworks thing, this is a godsend. You can, it's mid-side, so this side is for the middle thing, and this is for everything else. I mean, left and right. And you can make, as I did, everything under 30 hertz is mono, so it's the same. It puts the low end in the middle, and increase stereo width. It's like 140, and these are really, really, really. It's like precision tool, but I don't use this EQ in any other place than in the master, because you can get lost in this thing. It's just for subtle things. It's not like, I really like this in the master bus, but I really don't use it for much other than this. But I mean, take a listen what the difference is.
Same old place, same old thoughts.
Now with it,
Same old door and the same old wall.
it's not doing much, but it's doing at the same time I mean, these are not drastic changes. There's like 1.3 dB, 2.8, 1.3, 1.4. Yeah, little things here and there just to sculpt the whole package and really compress it. Not compress it as in a compress, but sonically. Yeah, there you have it. That's the mix. And I'm sticking by it. Yeah.